Whoa, careful here. You're tugging on your base.
Oh no, not
Don't
the
tug
base.
on your base and camera.
It's
I
disgusting.
don't want to see that.
This is a
Disgusting.
family-friendly
Wait a little bit.
podcast.
This is a family podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Casual Obsession, a horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. On this episode, we are discussing the hit horror Marvel movie, New Mutants. With us, as always, is me, Emma.
Sorry, Noah's laughing at how you described it as a hit movie while he has all of the below 50% ratings up.
The hit movie.
It was a hit.
Marvel movie.
The hit
Anyway,
Marvel movie.
and I'm Nina. Hello.
I'm Noah still. I'm sorry.
And I am Jeff.
Great. Perfect. Love it. So, for those of you who are bad and haven't watched this movie, let me go ahead and give you a quick summary of it. So basically, it's about mutants. You know, those things in X-Men that, like, they're mutants and they have special powers? Yeah, them. It's about them. But
Damn.
these people aren't
These ones
in
are
the
new.
X-Men. And they're new. And so they get taken to this hospital. And they're like stuck in the hospital while a doctor named Dr. Reyes is like examining them and helping them kind of like learn to use their powers and control their powers. But there's just something like weird going on. Like nothing's quite right. As the main character, Danny, is just kind of like arriving at the hospital and trying to figure out what's going on. But yeah, that is a quick synopsis. For those of you who don't know, this movie has been in kind of like development hell for a while. It's had 5 release dates.
Yikes.
It was originally set to release in April 2018, but was pushed back to February 19th, 2019 for reshoots. Then it was pushed back again to August 2019 when Disney finalized like purchasing Fox. Then it was pushed back again to April 3rd, 2020 to make room for X-Men Dark Phoenix. And then it was postponed again because of COVID. And then finally, it was actually released in August 28th, 2020.
Whack.
But none of us realized that it was released then because I didn't notice that it had finally been released until
It's almost like they didn't talk
December.
about it.
Yeah,
I knew it was
exactly.
released because I work in a nerd store and I kind of have to know these things. But that was the only reason.
See,
Go ahead.
no, you.
I'm going to ask questions about the movie itself and how it changed through all the delays and stuff. So,
Oh, yeah. See, I was excited when I first heard about it, you know, in what, like 2017 or whatever, when the first trailers dropped.
yeah.
I thought it was going to be a fun time. I remember that really terrible trailer with the weird remix of Pink Floyd.
Oh.
Ooh,
And
what
yeah,
song was
you
that?
know, Another Brick in the Wall.
Yikes.
It was just the kids' chorus.
No
that doesn't
good.
even hit the actual tone of the movie.
No, it doesn't fit the tone of the movie at all.
Not
And
at all.
that's the big problem is that you can tell, because I think the ads ended up staying pretty much the same, but I really feel like the tonal shift of the movie definitely changed.
Yikes.
That's interesting because out of all the movies I've seen that have been through development hell in the past few years, and I mean Justice League and Suicide Squad I am referring to specifically, this was the most tonally consistent out of the three of them.
Yeah.
Like it honestly did come together. It was not a good movie in my opinion, but out of
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page there.
So I was talking.
You guys were talking about being
Before-
excited to talk about it, and I was just
before
like,
I talk
did they
about-
all like it?
Okay, so before I talk about my review of the movie, I want to say I was talking to my boss about the fact that I was going to watch this movie, and he was like, "Yeah, I watched that one recently." I'm like, "Oh yeah, what were your thoughts?" He's like, "Well, it wasn't good," and I was like, "Yes, that's to be stated." And he's like, "However, it was better than the past two installments of the X-Men," and I can say wholeheartedly that I agree with him on that.
All right.
Yeah, because those movies have been poopy lately.
Very much so.
I do get the impression.
Originally, the director actually wanted it to lean more on the horror elements,
Okay.
but he wasn't able to because Marvel.
Watching it, I
Mhm.
get the impression that it
Cowards.
was maybe supposed to be about 20 minutes longer with a really hard R rating, and it could have been good that way.
I
yeah,
agree.
I think
It was very close to that too, honestly.
yeah. He says he felt a bit neutered because he had to tone down the film from his original full horror ideas.
That's
Um,
unfortunate because it could have been really cool in considering the angle that they did take with certain characters' powers. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A
The
couple other
soundtrack
fun
also
facts.
reflected that.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk about the soundtrack later. Yeah.
A couple
Sorry,
other
I'll go
fun
off.
facts. So this was directed by Josh Boone, who, if you don't know, also directed the hit horror movie A Fault in Our Stars.
Very
Jeez.
scary.
I heard
Yeah.
it was
Well, he-
terrifying. I never went and watched it because I was too scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Maybe we'll cover that one someday on this podcast.
Next
Um,
episode.
He started working on this after finishing that, and he intended this to be the first movie in a trilogy.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
That would have been
the-
good. I could have put up with that.
Yeah. The second film was supposed to be an alien invasion movie featuring the alien mutant warlock. And then the third one was going to be a supernatural apocalyptic horror based on the X-Men comic of Inferno.
okay, I don't want to be too much of a nerd here. First of all, Inferno
Be a
is
nerd.
one of my favorite comic book arcs. Secondly, and I would have loved to say it. Secondly, Warlock he couldn't have done because Warlock has now been teased in the MCU at the end of
Guardians
at the end
2.
of Guardians 2. So
Mhm.
that's something that unfortunately has been yanked out from underneath him. But too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got like
Well-
3 different Quicksilvers, so why not both?
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
We got to be very careful about the X-Men MCU content in this episode because WandaVision is currently addressing that. And I don't want to either spoil anything or get a theory so terribly wrong that I look back at this and cringe.
I'm going to
So-
say
True.
as many things as I want because I haven't kept up on the X-Men movies, the MCU movies. I'm not going to watch WandaVision. So, like,
That's
the
valid.
more
That's
wrong I
fair.
am, the
Hardcore
happier I
Mephisto
will be,
fan.
honestly.
Shut up.
Nina talks all day long about how Mephisto is behind everything.
You're trying to rile me
Mephisto
up. It
made
won't
Thanos
work.
snap.
It will not
Wasn't-
work.
Mephisto, from
is the
Star
one that
Wars?
gave
That's Kit Fisto.
No, that's
Um,
Belasco.
Isn't there like
Um,
a thing in the comments where like Wanda's children are actually like Mephisto's kids or something?
No. I'm not going to have this conversation. I'm not doing
Hey
it.
Nina, take the bait. Take the bait, Nina.
I'm not.
I can't
You
believe
guys
after
are
Nina said
making
I'm not
me
rising to the
so
bait, you baited
angry.
her so hard.
You guys
I don't know
are
what you
gonna
can
kill
expect.
something.
Well, actually Warlock was supposed to be in this film.
And
And
then Mephisto got him.
guess who was in talks for the role?
Oh,
Oh,
Josh
please tell me.
Brolin.
No, Sacha Baron Cohen.
Holy fuck, you're kidding.
Would that have been
No.
You're absolutely no.
He was in
know
talks
anything
for the
about the
role.
character.
That's like, remember how everyone said Nick Cage was in talks to play Superman? It is that level of
Well,
ill
That
fitting.
might be
It
the
would have
one
been,
Superman
like-
movie that I would ever be excited to watch.
It would have been like a CGI character, and Sacha Baron Cohen would have done like the voice and like mocap.
I hate it.
I just love the idea of
Shut up.
him doing his Borat voice.
Very nice.
Oh, you mutants, very
I
nice.
could do a whole podcast episode on my mixed feelings towards
Um,
Sacha Baron Cohen, but let's move on.
Yeah. The last fun fact that I'll say, because the other fun facts are kind of spoilery,
Mhm.
is this was the last Marvel film to be released with Stan Lee as an executive producer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did notice that in the credits.
But he's not in the
Oh,
movie.
I guess because it was in limbo for the entirety of it.
Mhm.
He isn't in the movie.
No.
Yeah.
Well, that would be really weird considering how the cast consists of literally 6 characters.
No, yeah,
he
he
could have
wouldn't
made
have
it
fit.
work. Come on. His cameo in
No.
every single movie that he is in completely breaks the immersion of the whole thing because it makes you look
Yeah.
at him and say, hey, that's Stan Lee. So
Yeah.
See, we need
One-
some of
one
the
other
Sam
thing.
Raimi levels.
Yes, Emma?
There were going to be some additional reshoots after Disney got basically acquisitioned Fox and this movie by
Mhm.
proxy, but by that point it had been like 2 years since they initially like shot the film, and like the actors have noticeably aged. And
Yeah.
so they're like, yeah, we can't realistically reshoot.
And thank God, because I bet you one thing they would have completely erased from the movie. And I'm really salty with Disney for canceling a film that I was really looking forward to. So I'm just going to say it. It probably would have been the romance that's in this movie because it is, in fact, a lesbian romance. They probably would have cut that out entirely because it's Disney and they're the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah, this is the first like big on-screen lesbian romance for Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
which I love.
does
And it
that
was
make
really
them
also-
cute. It
does
was
that
so
make them
cute.
Disney's first gay characters for the 17th time?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
But also, and perhaps even more importantly, because there was some great, what's the word? There's some great representation for a very small and marginalized group of people, the furries.
Oh. I was going to say, are you talking about people who can't hold an accent for more than 3 seconds? Because that was heavily
Charlie
represented.
I love Daniel Craig. What are you talking about?
Daniel Craig rocked it in Knives Out, though. That bad Louisiana
that one, he did
accent was there the
actually
whole
kill
movie.
it in that one. But have you ever watched Dreamhouse?
I was thinking you were talking about Tomb Raider, but okay.
Is Daniel Craig
I've
in
never-
Tomb Raider? I've never watched a Tomb
Yeah.
Raider movie.
Yeah,
Is
he
Tomb Raider
plays.
scary?
I wish.
So next
I would love
week-
to-
Next
Anyway,
week, we're
the
watching Tomb
scariest
Raider.
movie I've ever seen.
can we give our ratings now? Actually,
Wait,
We're
we
already-
need,
or do
don't we
want
need
to do
the
anything
critical
else?
ratings?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
let's hear
so.
what other people think of this movie before we talk
Yeah.
about what we think of this movie.
Boy, howdy, they're bad.
All right.
See, I was going into this not expecting to find a lot of good stuff, right? Because I figure at the very least, even if this movie was a good movie, it's going to carry the X-Men stank of having never put out a good movie in their life.
They haven't.
So it's not going
They
to
haven't.
go well, right?
Logan, excuse
Okay,
me.
Logan was good.
Oh,
a lot of people
gigantic
ignore
exception for
Logan.
Logan there.
Yeah, people are like, Logan actually isn't an X-Men movie because it's just about Wolverine.
It is
it's
an
got Professor X in it.
X-23 and Caliban and so many characters
And
that are from the
Xavier.
comics are in that, and Xavier.
That movie, absolutely fantastic. Very, very good movie.
Love it. It's part of the reason my
every
wife and I are
X-Men
together.
Around and aw.
That's cute.
That's
Is,
really
is it
cute.
because she saw that you cried at the end of Logan and she's like, oh, he's not a fake man. He's a real man.
No, it's just
Who
going to
cried?
see Logan was our first date. And it was the third time that I had seen the movie in theaters, but I didn't tell her that.
That's so
the way to do it.
cute.
That's cute.
Anyway,
Okay. But
yeah,
the critics hated this movie.
Okay, so IMDb ringing in with a nice 5.3, which is about what I expected to see, right? I
Out
was
of 10?
expecting about a middle of the road. Yep.
Okay.
No, Jeff, out of 5.
Oh.
We got Rotten Tomatoes with the lowest score. Lowest score of the bunch with 35%.
Whoa,
Which I gotta be honest, the movie's not that bad.
I think that's a little bit too harsh. It's not good, granted. But
I feel like
35?
Rotten Tomatoes is always like more harsh.
Yeah, they kind of are.
Metacritic came in with a 43.
Ow.
That's that. And Letterboxd is 2.3 out of 5. So, we got a nice 46% on that one.
Wow. So we're reaching like 50% at best, basically.
We're trending 40, 45.
I really want to talk about our ratings for this.
Yeah. So Nina, why don't you start us off with your personal rating and thoughts on this movie?
I am unfortunately also going to have to give 2 ratings for this movie. As an X-Men fan, in the ranking of X-Men movies, this one is a 9 out of 10 with Logan being a 10 out of 10. So it's like comparatively to the rest of the X-Men
Days
movie,
of Future Past fans.
Days of Future Past was not great.
X-Men
but it was,
First Contact.
I didn't like First Class. It's First Class, by the way.
I don't care.
I really want to see the Star Trek X-Men crossover movie that would be, I don't know, First Class Contact or whatever you would call it.
Picard is there. Professor X is also there.
He is both characters simultaneously.
Anyway.
And they talk about it.
Anyway.
Yes.
So that's, for an X-Men movie, I thought this is really, really good. It was entertaining. I liked the adaptations of the characters a lot. I loved getting to see Magic and her powers on screen. She's one of my favorite characters, etc. For a horror movie, this is I'm being generous. I felt like it was a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
It's not that scary. I didn't think it was a good horror movie. I don't think it pulled off horror even a little bit. It was way too superhero-y.
I feel like in the horror regard, with all the reshoots and recuts, I think it's very obvious that Marvel, like Disney Marvel, is set on being the first Marvel horror movie, quote unquote, with the new Doctor Strange, because that's the angle they were kind of working on originally. I very heavily feel like they tried to force them as being the first one and gutted a lot of elements of this movie for it. Flip side, this was a really fun movie to watch. I did not have a bad time with it in the slightest. I give it a 6 out of 10. I think it earned its above average place. This is not by any means a below average movie in my book. Horror movie, nice. It's if we're going by how scary I think it is, I mean, it's not a horror movie.
Well, but like if you go in with like X-Men expectations, it's like, wow, this is so much better than previous movies.
As someone
like literally what I said,
Like I skipped Dark Phoenix because why would I watch Dark Phoenix?
Yeah,
I watched Apocalypse and it was really bad.
Yep.
Man, Apocalypse was just such a edgelord Redditor atheist. And it was so bad. It's
like he was like the Thanos like philosophy, but if it was written by someone who didn't have an understanding of the nuance. Like I don't even agree. I think the people who agree with Thanos and people who think he was a sympathetic villain are blind to or haven't dealt with many male manipulators in their lives.
Or many humans in general, I think.
I think there's just people who are privileged to not have had someone like that in their life before, where they can find him sympathetic, or they are that person.
Fair.
I'm not a bigot. I hate everybody equally.
Yeah, that kind of person.
I am hilarious and original.
And Apocalypse is even worse than Thanos.
Yeah. So we're on a slump. I mean, the first X-Men movie, right? Campy,
super campy.
Fun. The second
one is great. X2,
second one's fun.
I love
enjoy
X2.
Actually, no, I forgot.
I cannot
X2.
think of a single thing that happens in the second X-Men movie.
Nightcrawler.
No, me too.
I think every single shot of the first one is like etched on the inside of my skull. I could probably recite half of the movie word for word because the lines are all so laughable.
There's so few. Exactly.
I have got no idea what the plot of the second movie even is.
It was just a Wolverine movie.
It was a Wolverine movie because it involved the kid of the one guy
Stryker.
And they tried to use Cerebro at the end, but it was already like decayed and shit. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched that
X-Men Origins
movie.
Wolverine.
Part 2.
but then they just redid it in Wolverine.
Yeah.
Okay.
X3 was bad.
Yeah,
It was
it's
real
terrible.
bad.
Yeah, that's the
It
one where
started
they
the
like
trend
find the
Of
cure or
listening
whatever.
to the
right?
internet.
No, it
Yeah,
started the
that
trend
one.
of trying to make Jean Grey the main character.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
I just do not like that. First Class was fine. It started the trend of trying to make Magneto and Charles the main characters, which I also
Which
don't
is better.
super love.
It's
I love-
better.
It's
It's,
better,
a
but-
step up from focusing on Jean Grey, which means that you
It
have to
is.
focus on Scott.
Hmm.
I mean, they're more
Um,
entertaining characters,
but
if nothing else.
The thing is, by the to speed through the other X-Men movies,
Mhm.
Origins is a guilty pleasure of mine. I really enjoy
not
it.
good at all, but boy
It's
howdy,
so
it's fun
bad.
to watch.
It's
I
real
absolutely love it for the same reasons I love this movie. I love seeing Gambit on screen.
Just like in this movie.
He's in there.
Exactly. I loved seeing a bunch of different comic characters and how they were adapted to screen is the most part, except for Deadpool. Screw that. Why did they do that? That was the worst decision they could have possibly made, and I don't know why they did it to this day.
But they fixed it, so
But they fixed it, so we can just pretend it never happened. First Class, I already mentioned. What else? The Wolverine is terrible.
It's real bad.
It made
I
me
never
so
saw that one.
upset when I watched it the first time. I watched it the night before Days of Futures Past, so I could be up to date if it was mentioned
If
at
we
all.
were naming it like Friday the 13th movies, it would be Wolverine, or I'm sorry, it would be Logan Goes to Japan.
Logan Goes to Japan.
Oh, I forgot about that movie.
I know, right?
It ruins a couple characters that my brother really liked. Silver Samurai, to name one. I really like. I think her name's Yumiko. I don't remember for sure. But I really like her in the comics. She kind of sucked in the movie. She was like a scene kid. Not a good movie. Didn't like it. 0 out of 10. Days of Futures Past. Enjoyed.
It was fun.
It was fine.
And then we got
and then we
Apocalypse
got
and Dark
Apocalypse.
Phoenix, which we already
Those
talked about.
are
It's-
bad.
So
Yeah.
in the grand timeline of X-Men, this sits much closer to the top than it does to the bottom.
close. And then we got Logan, which was incredible, but also so far removed. Which is this movie
In a
is
league of its
also
own.
absolutely.
this movie is also extremely far removed in that it doesn't even mention the X-Men outside of name dropping them as a place you can go, which I find very interesting for comic book reasons.
Yeah.
What if somebody made an alternate version of YMCA by the Village People?
Where are you
But
going
instead
with
of saying
this?
young man, they just say X-Man.
I don't
You
think
said
that there's
there's
a
a
joke
place
for the
you
rest
can
of
go, and
the
that's
song.
what I thought of immediately.
Oh my gosh, you're right. That would actually
X-Men.
be a really good
There's a
parody.
place you can go. I said X-Men.
I am a moron.
Anyways,
What was your review
Oh, yeah.
of this movie?
Oh right, we're still doing ratings.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is exactly
No,
what I
I
was
love
trying
it.
not to do.
I
This
love
is
it.
what we
I'm
need
so happy.
because watching this movie, I knew literally nothing about any of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movie as a whole, I think, felt more like the Walmart version of the X-Men than it did an actual Marvel property in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And this is
That's Fox's
because
movies in general, though.
No,
This is
X Factor is the
because
Walmart version.
it was
of
so
X-Men.
ruined by being owned by Disney and all the delays and such. I want to focus more on the potential than the squandering, but
But you didn't know what the potential was.
Yeah, that's valid.
yeah, I had no idea what to look for. I feel like I would understand the depth of a lot of things in this movie a lot better if I knew who these characters were. But the whole way through, I was just like, Lockheed seems pretty cool.
He did.
is.
I hate this
Lockheed
Brazilian
is the
dude.
best.
Lockheed
Yeah.
is still pretty
Yeah.
cool. That's the whole movie for me.
It's super valid.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
And
wait
I
to get
mean,
into stuff.
coming out the
later.
other side, Lockheed's still pretty cool. But
He
Yeah.
is. He's the best.
yeah, I don't know. What did I give Crimson Peak? Like a 5?
I don't remember.
Because I
Yeah,
enjoyed
you gave
watching
it a
this an
5.
awful lot more than I enjoyed Crimson Peak.
Mhm.
Maybe just because it's shorter. I don't know. Who's to say? So I'm going to give it like a 5.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because it's fun enough to watch. It's
Yeah.
definitely not good. but like
No.
I can see the potential where it could have been good.
Mhm.
And it didn't annoy me.
Okay, listen up, everybody. Inside of you, there are two bears.
Oh my god.
Oh, just like in the movie. There's
Just
two
like in the
bears in the
movie.
movie.
There are two bears constantly fighting for your soul. One bear likes this movie, and the other bear supports Gina Carano.
Oh no.
Emma, I'm so glad you liked this movie.
I give this movie a 10 out of 10. It was incredible. I loved it.
Oh my god.
Best X-Men movie besides Logan.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's the worst part, is that is actually a reasonable thing to say.
Yeah.
I think the nice thing about it is it managed to take itself reasonably seriously
Just enough.
without taking itself as seriously as like the
Origins.
flaws of. Well, no, because I don't think Origins took itself
No,
seriously at
Origins
all.
had
I kind of
Will
got the
I
impression
Am.
it did.
It had Will I Am.
It did have Will I Am, you're right.
Wait, Origins had Will I Am?
It had
Yes.
Will I Am.
I don't
X-Men
remember
Origins.
that.
He played the
I thought this was a bit.
cowboy hat wearing teleporting
He's
man.
like, I'm Will I Am, and I got a big gun. And that
Oh,
was
no.
That's
his
what he
whole bit.
says. He walks
And
on the
then-
screen and he says that.
Logan comes and connects with him later, and he's just like, I'm still Will I Am, and I can't help you.
Yeah, and
but
then
I'll
Charlie
help you a
from
little
Lost
bit.
comes in and he's like, hey, it's me, Charlie from Drive Shaft. And then he turns a light on and that's it.
Okay.
He do be turning lights on. Anyway, I let's move on.
Yeah.
I-
So, okay. So now that we have that out of the way, we have trigger
goodness.
warnings.
What
Noah
about the
has
scary
one
rating?
trigger down.
Okay, what's your trigger, Noah?
Racism?
Yeah, why is Ilyana so fucking racist? It's like it's not entirely out of character, but she's so racist.
Yeah.
guess she
She
is,
says
yeah.
some
She's-
really crappy stuff.
She's from Mother Russia.
That's not an excuse.
No,
Her brother's
it's
not racist. He's
Brother's
actually
not
the
racist.
sweetest
Who's her
person.
brother?
Do you know?
What?
Are you not? You're not going to say?
Are we going into spoilers?
It's
Not
not,
yet,
a spoiler.
not yet.
It's just base knowledge that people.
No,
could
because to
have.
talk about her spoilers, I'm her brother. I'm also gonna have to talk about spoilers for her backstory.
You literally don't. You could just say it without
Okay, it's-
explaining.
But I want to
Okay,
talk
now hold
about
on a
more
second.
stuff
This is something that I
related to it.
absolutely hate about X-Men characters is I can't make the, this character's mom was the real villain joke because every character's parent or sibling is actually a character who's in the canon.
Yeah,
And it's
Yeah.
probably somebody that I already know about and I just don't know how
Maybe
they're all
Wanda-
connected.
maybe
You
Wanda's dad was the
definitely-
villain all the time. Oh,
Wanda's
that's
dad's
Magneto.
Mephisto?
It's Colossus. Her brother's Colossus, the big
Oh.
silver dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know.
that's why her
And
arm
they
does
never
the thing.
mentioned that in the
Okay.
movie.
That's not
that's not
relevant
why
at all,
her
but
arm.
all right.
That's not why her arm does the thing.
What? Well,
I will talk about that when we
But
get to
why would
spoilers.
it? But it's like him.
Yeah, no.
It's just
I
like
can. No, it's not.
What?
I will tell you the whole backstory. for
Jeff, I'm
her.
so sorry.
This is going to be an extra long episode because I need to hear everything because I know literally nothing.
That's
Does
fine.
anyone else have triggers? Because I'm
other
pretty sure
triggers.
There's a dog
the
that doesn't
only-
die.
There's a dog that doesn't die.
She's okay.
The only
The
other
dog gets
trigger
beat up,
I
though.
could potentially think of was there was a scene where the main character Danny was thinking of killing herself by jumping off a bell tower. And then she didn't.
Yeah.
The evil priest could be a thing for some people.
Yeah, there's an evil
Yeah.
priest.
The dudes
I mean, like-
without faces could be a thing for some people.
The
Yeah, those
scene-
dudes are creepy.
The scene where Danny is restrained and going to be medically
that was what I
put
was
down.
also
that
thinking
that
of.
one is
Yeah.
that one is one that I could see being a trigger for some people.
It's pretty
Mhm.
scary.
So-
Yeah. Okay, so with trigger warnings out of the way, guess what time it is?
Is it
Summary,
is it Emma's
Emma's
scary
scary
rating?
rating?
It's almost
It's
3
Emma's
o'clock.
scary rating.
Oh,
Yay!
It's almost 3:00.
Now,
Anyway.
I have news for you, all you naysayers out there who say this movie isn't scary. It is,
Nay.
in fact, very scary. Because compared to other Marvel properties that have had no scary, like WandaVision, just a cute little show about like them traveling through time, being in different like sort of time period TV things. I haven't watched the last few episodes, but I imagine it just keeps that trend. But this is the scariest Marvel property that has been released, and as such, it gets a 10 out of 10.
What did you just throw?
Is it as scary as Spider-Man 3?
Even scarier.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, Tobey Maguire's emo haircut.
The scariest
beat
part
out.
of the movie.
Have you guys seen... Oh my god, this is getting off track. Have you guys seen that video where it's Spider-Man 3 Spider-Man facing Darth Maul?
Yes.
Yes.
I have not seen that one.
If you guys
It's
haven't
so
seen
good.
that, please look it up. It's really
We run
funny.
a very serious podcast.
We're very
We stay
serious
on topic
podcast.
100% of the time.
Yeah, and that's why you enjoy our podcast. Okay, so
It is.
now we're gonna go into the spoilery summary. So the movie starts off with our main character, Danny Moonstar, on her Indian reservation with her dad. She's woken up in the middle of the night saying that like a tornado has touched down and they have to run. She goes and hides in the forest, but it wasn't actually a tornado. It was a demon bear that her powers had summoned and killed everybody. You don't find that out till later in the movie, though. So she's knocked unconscious and then wakes up chained to a hospital bed and is in this like hospital institution that is run by Dr. Cecilia Reyes. Reyes is a very like comforting presence, very like calm and nurturing, like mother figure sort of. Talks about how she's just there to help Danny understand and learn to control her powers, and that once she does, she can be released back into society, and all that stuff. Danny then goes and meets the other mutants who are in the facility. There's Sam, who is like a cannonball. 'Cause that's his X-Men name.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah, he can like shoot off really, really fast. There's Ilyana, who we've talked about a little bit.
Whose last name is Rasputin, which is
Yeah.
dumb as shit.
That's-
Yeah.
Rasputin.
That's Colossus's last name too.
It's dumb
Didn't
for
anyone
Wait,
say when
so
it was
what's
his last?
Colossus's full name? It's Colossus
think it's-
Rasputin.
Peter, but in Russian, which I can't
Pyotr.
pronounce. Rasputin. Pyotr.
Piotr.
Yeah.
Pyotr Rasputin.
She has like a cool metal arm and like laser sword dealio, and she can transport herself back to this fantasy world. Is real cool.
And
Her
also
power's dope as shit.
Lockheed. Most
and
importantly.
Lockheed is not
Lockheed-
part of her powers, but he is there.
He's not
Lockheed-
Lockheed was there.
Lockheed
I can't
is
wait to tell you
her
about that.
dragon like hand puppet, but then when she uses her powers, he turns into a real dragon. Then there's Bobby DaCosta, who turns into fire, and then there's Rain, who is a wolf girl. Which also, just saying, the cast for this movie
Fantastic.
is like surprisingly
Mhm.
really good,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's like Maisie Williams. There's
I didn't recognize her for a hot second because of how young she looks in this movie.
yeah,
Because they shot it like 3 years ago when
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
like
A baby.
a baby.
baby.
Yeah, and then Anya
There's-
Taylor-Joy, who's fantastic.
Yeah, her stock has been blowing up lately. There's Charlie Heaton, who isn't like a very well-known name, but if you've seen Stranger Things, he's the brother. And
Yeah, he's not huge, but everybody knows him.
yeah, everybody knows him.
He's good.
And they also had we'll talk about this later. There was another person who was cast for this movie, but they didn't put his scenes in. And so we'll talk
Oh,
about that.
I'm
Nina,
excited to hear
you'll be
about that.
excited about it.
I'm sure I
'cause,
will.
It's
it's regarding
Thanos.
a person I know you want to talk about.
Oh my god, is it who I think it is?
Uh-huh.
Oh my god. I was
so-
It's Magneto's cousin.
No,
Okay,
you're not
so-
going to even understand what I'm saying when I talk about it.
I don't
So
understand anything that you say.
She meets all these people and gets along with Rain and everybody else she's kind of neutral towards, except for Ilya, who she
Rain
does not get
Shadow
along with. Rain Shadow Legends.
You said rain as I was drinking and I choked thinking about that. I'm sorry.
They have these like group therapy sessions and stuff, but then after Danny arrives there, everybody starts getting these really weird nightmares and hallucinations. And it leads to this point where they eventually drug Dr. Reyes where she falls asleep, and they kind of have like a party, and they're attacked by these like nightmare creatures, and that Danny is accidentally conjuring, because that's her power. And then Dr. Reyes wakes up and freaks out and everything. And she gets word. She like calms down the situation, and then she gets word from what's the corporation called?
Essex.
Essex Corp, who she's working for, that to collect additional DNA samples from Danny and then to like put her down because her power is too dangerous. And so then Dr. Reyes takes her into like the surgical room and ties her down and is going to kill her, but she's saved by Rain, who comes in all wolf-like and like scratches up Dr. Reyes's face. Reyes escapes, and the others eventually all meet up, because since Danny's unconscious, like her nightmare powers are going out of control. And they finally corner Dr. Reyes, and she like traps them in this like shield power that she has. But then Danny summons a giant demon bear.
It's one of the two bears that are inside you.
It's one of the two bears that are inside you.
I thought it was a third scary bear.
And the bear eats Dr. Reyes, but then they have to fight the bear. And eventually all of them are losing against the bear, but then Danny stands up and is like, hey, I'm the boss bitch. And the bear calms down. And then the movie ends. This shield that had been keeping them inside the hospital the entire time is down now that Dr. Reyes is dead. And they're like, oh, let's go see what's out there and blah, 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 blah. And that's the end.
No after credit scene, which did surprise me.
Oh, good.
I
didn't
was
stick
hoping
around
for an
it,
after
so
credit scene.
I was hoping there wouldn't
So-
be one.
Right off the bat, I want to talk real quick about Essex Corp and
Yes.
who that ties to.
Yes.
So angry.
Nina, I want you to talk about it because I know you're
Okay.
excited.
Is it Dio?
It's Dio.
It might as well be Dio. It's the Dio of the X-Men universe, because literally every time something weird is going on in the X-Men universe, it wraps around to it was Mr. Sinister all along.
Is his
And
name Mr.
yeah.
Sinister?
His name is
His name is
Nathaniel
Mr.
Essex,
Sinister.
but yes, his name is Mr. Sinister.
That's
He
so dumb.
It's so dumb.
He is an orchestrator behind cloning mutants, to try and kind of create the most powerful mutant is one of the reasons, or to kind of control mutants is another.
Oh, like from Logan.
he-
I gotcha.
He almost ruined
Yes.
Logan because he was cast to be played in Logan.
One might say that he's still a part of Logan, because that would be where Logan's clone would come from.
However,
Right.
he's not seen in Logan, and if you
Thank
know
God.
what this man looks like,
you
will
guys
agree
should
with
do
me that it's a
yourselves a
blessing.
favor if you have no idea what Mr. Sinister
Imagine,
looks like.
if you will,
please Google
Glenn
him.
Danzig.
It's Danzig?
Mixed
Wait.
with Dracula.
Wait a minute.
Dracula Dan-
We
His name's
gotta talk
Mr.
about who was.
Sinister?
We
I'm
gotta talk
Googling
about
him.
who was cast to play Mr. Sinister.
Who was cast to play Mr. Sinister?
Was it Glenn Danzig?
It was not Glenn
Who
Danzig.
was it?
John Hamm.
He would actually be perfect. What?
This man looks like a evil Superman.
Yeah, but with a cape. Like a terrible cape.
Oh yeah, like if you were to make like
John
a
Hamm
comically evil-looking version of Superman, he would look like Mr. Sinister.
I hate Mr. Sinister has created a couple pretty important clones, but the most important, in my opinion, is Madeline Pryor, who is the mother of Cable from the X-Men universe. So there's that. She's cool, and I love her, and she deserved better than everyone deserves better than Cyclops, but she specifically deserved better than Cyclops. I could see John Hamm, like if they toned down the costume as they do with everyone else's costumes always, and they just gave him a suit, he could totally pull it off.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they should have Robert Pattinson do it.
I totally forgot who our Pat was for a sec there and like glitched out, but
I think that's the effect he tries to have.
So yeah, that's one comic book character that I was waiting. Once they mentioned Essex, I was like, I know that name. I don't remember who that is. I Googled it and I'm like, are they going to say the name Mr. Sinister in this movie?
If they said the name Mr. Sinister in this movie would have gone from a 6 to a 4 for me.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I fully expected. So Ilyana has a moment. Her hero name is Magic, and she is the only character who has a moment where she like does the clever little name drop. Someone's like, you can't fight the demon bear, it's magic, and she looks to the camera and she goes, so am I. And I expected them to do the same thing with Mr. Sinister. I expected someone to be like, there's something more sinister going on here.
And then he would walk in and be like, so am I.
And then Mr. Sinister's mom came in and said, don't bully my boy.
Sinister is his
What
own
are
mom.
you, some kind of the new mutants?
I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but I'm pretty sure Mr. Sinister pulls like what Ultron does in the comics, where he just makes a new version of himself every few years.
Is that what Ultron does?
That's so okay,
Yes.
I guess as a guy who clones people, it makes sense, but that's so stupid.
That is stupid.
I hate comic books so much because they
you're gonna hate them
ramp up
even
to
more.
a point where they're like, I don't know what to do anymore, and then they have to kill God,
Yes.
or they reboot the entire universe, and
Yes.
we get our 532nd Spider-Man origin story.
This is why
Listen.
I stopped reading comics, the X-Men comics. I read them from the original run through the late 80s, and then I stopped. And I haven't read an X-Men comic that's more up to date than that. And I'm glad.
Is that not what D&D campaigns are, though?
D&D
You
campaigns
either
are different.
kill God or you start over.
or you live long
Yeah.
enough to see yourself become the...
The God that gets killed.
Oh.
Yeah. That anyway.
But enough
so
about the
that's
Keys to the
Sinister.
Kingdom books.
Do you guys want to hear about
Nobody read
Ilyana's
those.
comic book backstory? Since Jeff seems very
Please.
confused.
Extremely.
That's not fair to call Jeff out like that. I would be so confused if you
Okay.
had not been next to me the entire movie going, okay, so this character's backstory, I don't think that Rain actually turns into a wolf in the storyline. I think she just gets hairy. I'm not 100% sure. So actually Ilyana the whole time.
yeah.
And it helped so much.
Wolfsbane doesn't turn into a full dog until she's much further along into
that her name?
process of learning how to and into learning how to control her powers. Initially she's very much looks like a version of Beast that's just skinnier and brown instead of blue.
That's pretty lame.
I like her
With
as
the
a
classic
character.
X-Men hair that
With the
is
classic
like clown
80s
hair.
X-Men
Yeah,
hair.
Yeah, you know what I'm
You
talking
know,
about.
yeah. Anyway, so Ilyana, she is Colossus's little sister. She is like at least 10 years younger than him. What happened was she was in a situation where she was trapped in a dimension. And this is comic book, not what happens in the movie, because what happens in the movie is slightly different. In the comics, she is trapped in a dimension called Limbo, and while the X-Men try to save her in their dimension, she ages throughout the years. Time works differently there. She creates the Soul Sword, kills the ruler of Limbo, and becomes ruler of Limbo herself.
Wow.
Yeah. she is able to summon Colossus into her world. He sees what she's become and he's a little worried about her, but she does eventually get back to the normal world, now a fully grown older teenager. And despite time having not passed in the X-Men world, and she becomes an X-Men going by magic. Her powers are extremely ill-defined. They are very similar to Scarlet Witch's in that it can do magic manipulation, but she can also teleport by stepping into limbo, and she can create this magic armor and the soul sword. That's basically it. She doesn't turn to metal like Colossus. I don't even remember if she's actually a mutant, or if I think the magic manipulation part is the part that is mutancy, but everything else is kind of learned from being in limbo.
I would never have picked any of that up from this movie. I thought that being able to transport into limbo and summon the sword was just her power.
Yeah, no, they don't go into any of it. They just kind of play it off as her powers, but it's all things that she learned out of trauma, which, you know, they do kind of point to that in this movie. And then no, go ahead.
I think that they were gonna try to build up to that sort of, because the third movie was supposed to be more centered on her.
Yeah.
So I think that probably would have been explained in more detail.
Yeah. Because Inferno as a comic book arc is focused on Nightcrawler, but Nightcrawler and Illyana are very this might sound weird. They're kind of similar. Lockheed, though, and this will be my last dump for now. Lockheed is an alien that Kitty Pryde, who is played by Elliot Page in the original movies, Kitty Pryde finds this alien dragon on a spaceship and brings him back to Earth as her pet. And that's Lockheed. He's a real, actual dragon who hangs out with Kitty at first and then later on magic.
I wish we could share the video from this recording so that anyone could see Jeff's
This is the
flummoxed
dumbest and
face.
most convoluted shit I have ever heard in my life. That makes no sense at all. Him being a puppet that just suddenly spontaneously comes to life through
that
some
made no
sort of
sense to
mystical
me
movie
either.
magic makes more sense than what you just said.
Well, no, when knowing the origin of Lockheed and then seeing him in this movie made no sense to me. I was like, is he just a figment of Illyana's imagination? How she does not come up with Lockheed as a character. That is Kitty entirely. She names all of a bunch of different things Lockheed before she actually meets the actual Lockheed.
That's weird.
Yeah. That one's weird for sure. And then the weirdest thing about Illyana to me is that she mentions the X-Men and how they could become part of the X-Men. She does not mention that her brother is currently a member of the X-Men, and that is gonna be the weirdest thing to me.
That's valid.
I mean, when the
You know what? That's a good
Juggernaut
point.
shows up, he's never like, my brother's Professor X, but
But she's like,
because he's too dumb. He doesn't know.
we could join the X-Men. And everyone else is like, why would we want to join the X-Men? And she's like, yeah, you're right. It's
Maybe
Illyana.
that's why, though. Maybe she's like, hey, and we can join the X-Men. Smiles, thumbs up, and everyone's like, hey, the X-Men, they kind of suck ass. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm too cool for the X-Men, too. I also wouldn't want to be in the X-Men.
I do not love and miss my brother at all.
Yeah.
I would not summon my brother to the area if given the chance.
Yeah.
Which is what she does every time. So, yeah, that was weird to me. It's not weird that they didn't want to mention that he was her brother, on a grander scale, but it was weird that they went so far as to have her specifically mention the X-Men and nothing about Colossus. So I don't know if in this movie universe she's not supposed to be related to him. That's the only thing that I could think of. Or maybe she's
just not aware because they haven't seen each other in so long for whatever set of reasons.
Actually, yeah. I think that actually makes the most sense.
Is that she just doesn't even know.
That she might not know it's that, and in my mind tied for too cool for school. Yeah, I wouldn't be an X-Men either. Cries silently.
I do like that.
I feel like her and Negasonic Teenage Warhead would be friends.
They would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They would.
But not right away.
I would want to see that friendship on screen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That would be power couple. Not
power couple.
Not dating because Negasonic is taken, but
yeah. Avi.
So, to divert a little bit away from her backstory, though,
Right.
I have beef with one specific character, and not for the reason you think.
Oh, is it because of? I know what you mean. Go ahead.
I don't
Okay.
think you do.
I think I'm for it.
So Roberto Bobby DaCosta.
Yeah, it's his nickname,
Yeah.
isn't
He's
it?
just
It's
the
his
Human
nickname.
Torch, right?
yeah.
No. What nickname are you thinking of? The nickname Bobby?
No, Berto. You
Okay,
you
so here's the
already
thing.
complained
Here's
about
the thing.
this.
In the movie, the Dr. Reyes says, and this is Bobby, and not a single person in that movie calls him Bobby. It is the most out of touch teacher moment, which would be great if he wasn't listed as Bobby as his like name in other sources, because everyone in the movie calls him Berto.
Oh,
I
yeah.
No one
completely
calls
missed
him
that.
Bobby.
I didn't notice
Yeah.
her calling him Bobby.
Yeah, she introduces him as Bobby, and when he's like unreasonably horny in that like circle that they're all sitting in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she introduces him as Bobby, and I'm like, okay. And then every single time it's Roberto or Berto.
Yeah.
I
Which
would
is-
also like to call out about him.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he always the only one doing chores?
Yeah, he
That's a
literally
good
is.
question.
Which is weird because he's the rich kid. Why is his compulsive thing that he does chores all the time? It seems like it's a comfort thing for him.
It's kind of
I
odd.
also love how he throws away his t-shirts that get wet from dishwater.
Yeah, what in
Yeah.
the world?
That's
It's a
a
character
true
choice.
rich kid thing.
No matter how rich you get, when does that start to make sense? That's just...
Yeah.
Berto definitely gets the prize for grew on me most over the runtime.
I
Because
can
I
agree with
already
that.
liked Ilyana, even though she's a bitch. I did come in with some predisposed love for her. But I had no love for Sam through the whole movie. Don't care for him as a character.
I'm
Oh.
so angry at his accent. Either have an accent or don't have an accent. Who told him in one scene they're like, all right, you need to do such an accent? He's like, okay, I'll do an accent. And then the next scene they're like, so that accent
Dial that
sucked.
back.
Actually, don't do that. But they didn't reshoot. He just didn't have an accent, and then he did have an accent.
Yeah, it's like
Pretty
they just
consistently
bounced
throughout the
between
movie.
telling him Kentucky and Ohio and then just...
Mhm.
Yeah. And then like they're like, here, hold this piece of coal because it's important to you. And so he's just like holding it in one scene. We never see it before. We never see it again.
Until he throws it into the stratosphere.
He's like, and then
Yeah.
he's gonna kill someone with that. That man just shot.
The closest,
incendiary
the
rock.
closest
I've got
town
a
is
lot of
20
questions
miles
about
away.
his powers,
Maybe.
actually. Because when
His
we
powers?
first see him
Yeah.
using his powers and he like ties himself onto that big heavy thing and he like zips around in a circle and slams into the ground a bunch of times, it looks like his power is so completely uncontrollable. But then later in the movie, we see him use it twice for a real quick burst where he just runs in a
Yeah,
straight
little
line
micro
through
movements.
something. And it looks perfectly manageable. Like he's got a perfect handle on it.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem at all. So
Mhm.
what is the deal there?
That's something that I have a complaint about through the whole movie because here's the thing. At least 2 times, maybe more, Ilyana is in a situation where she's screaming and wants to leave, and she could just teleport. She could teleport out of solitary. Easy.
Yeah.
And like she does have like the whole trauma response with Sam where he's like do something, and finally she does teleport out, and it's like okay, so it just took her a moment to realize that she had agency there. But with solitary, there's no reason that at some point she shouldn't have been just like fuck you.
So something actually, I watched this with Becca, and something that she pointed out halfway through the movie is like, how is solitary any worse than just going back to
That's
their
what I
regular
said, too.
bedrooms?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly
Yeah.
what all their regular bedrooms are. It's just a slightly
Like,
larger
It's
room.
literally not
When-
different.
When she mentioned solitary, like at the beginning before they just showed it, I was like, oh, so they just like go back to their rooms. And
Yeah.
then like they actually showed solitary. I was like, what's the point of that?
Like, well,
It's
why?
just
Yeah.
it's just a worse bed,
Yeah,
and that's I think the only difference.
apparently so. Yeah, well, that's
You already
odd.
don't have privacy. You already can't leave your room after lights out. Like, what is the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, a major problem that I had with, like you said, Ilyana has so many scenes where she's like, you know, raging and angry and wants out. So in the one scene where she starts to realize that Danny is the reason for all the bad things that have been happening, and Dr. Reyes like sedates her, and as she passes out, she says she'll kill us all or something along those lines. And in literally the next scene, she's just sitting on the floor in her room. Danny walks in, and it's not a thing. Danny just walks in. She's like, hey there, I bought you Lockheed. And Ileana's just like, I guess I'll tell you my life story now because we're friends and all. And that makes no sense at all.
I really wish it had been an ambiguous thing where she's could be referring to Dr. Reyes as the she that will kill us all. I've been watching a lot of horror TV. I watched all of Hill House, and I've been watching Bly Manor. And,
oh my God, we got to talk about that later.
Yeah, and I have also been watching WandaVision, and the thing about WandaVision is there is like times where characters will be like she this, she that, and you think that it's Wanda. I'm 99% sure that it's another character that they're talking about.
It's Mephisto's mom.
Famous woman, Mephisto.
Mephisto's mom, Nina.
Mephisto's mom.
Yeah.
But like that's the kind of thing that I'm getting used to. That's the level of like literacy that I am on right now, where I'm like, oh, when they say she, when it's a pronoun being used, it could be a misdirect, but it wasn't. It was like it could have been read as that if it hadn't been so obviously spoken directly to Reyes. If she had just kind of said it to nobody in particular, I could have believed it
and
as
then
a misdirect.
Nobody saw Ileana for another couple of scenes, and they had to all come to the same conclusion as well.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean, I think Ileana, because my read on that scene of like her getting drugged out and then Danny coming and giving her Lockheed back, I think my read on Ileana was that she thought Danny was doing it like intentionally, and was just very hostile towards her from the very beginning.
But the apology was
that kind of like sincere moment of like, hey, I like wanted to bring this to you, just kind of like show the moment of sincerity, and kind of like broke past Ileana's like kind of wall that she had up and her aggressiveness towards Danny, and made her see that Danny was like a sincere person and wasn't like doing this intentionally. And so she was kind of comforted by that and was able to open up from there.
Can I say one thing that this movie does really well that a lot of the X-Men movies did not?
Everything.
Casting.
Does everything well. Because it's a 10 out of 10.
I don't even want to say cast. I want to say it does an ensemble movie very well, where we do get enough time with each of the characters for me to feel like I do know each of them pretty okay.
I guess.
Specifically Rain and Ileana and Danny, but even the boys, like we do get enough of their backstory that we know where they're coming from. And not Sam as much. Sam has such a basic backstory, and it kind of pisses me off.
I feel like with each of them, we got enough to get an idea, but not enough time to actually get attached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But it's better than, like I said, better than the first X-Men movie where they had Toad for some reason and Sabretooth, but each of them only get one line each.
Yeah.
Why were they there?
To make sure that all the fans see them and know that like those characters are in there.
Yeah. It's an exciting thing.
And that way
Nina's
we also
face
find
is
out
just like so annoyed.
What happens when a toad is struck
by lightning.
I've
been waiting an hour to find the best opportunity to say that line.
I hate that movie. Like I love it, but I hate it.
It's so
I
good.
just want to say
I haven't even looked at my notes yet.
I love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly for what it is. I think there are some rough spots. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But it's the first, like, specifically X-Men movie, but also, like, superhero movie in general. Because I didn't know about these characters, like, backgrounds or anything. Like, they're all new to me.
Yeah.
And so watching it, like, I just loved their interactions, and I loved, like, what it could be. And so I would have loved more movies with these characters.
Yeah.
Me too.
So they're
I would have
almost
loved to see,
certainly-
like, the trilogy kind of come out.
Yeah, they're
But-
almost certainly not going to do that though, right?
I doubt it. After
No.
how badly this movie did.
Yeah.
I have a very important question.
Yeah.
Jeff. So I've explained all of the stuff that you like were lost about at this point.
Yeah.
It did not help anything, I'm sure.
No.
But I'm really, really curious about what you thought was going on as someone who did not know anything about the comics, because this movie does the thing that comic book movies do that piss me off the most, which is it doesn't. It really, really expects you to know the comics at least a little bit, or else you're going to be super duper lost.
Yeah. I mean, the movie does well enough at portraying the story and every individual's like origin stories, like just enough that you kind of get where they're coming from and stuff, like we just talked about. It does well enough at showing its own story that, like, you know, the movie is like self-contained enough that I definitely feel like I'm not getting the depth of the characters, but I feel like in terms of like the actual plot of the movie, I got what it was putting down well enough.
That's fair. Yeah.
Other
I
than
think
like Essex Corporation, it's kind of like, well, what's
Yeah.
that though?
I really wish they had said something about what that was, because it did leave a really big like loose end to tie up, but it didn't even bring our attention back around to what it was by
Yeah.
the end of the movie. Like it really just left it hanging.
I have like 5 notes that sum up to Essex Corp probably means something to comic fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It does the same thing that like the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire did, and like the first
Good old
X-Men
Tobey.
movie and the first Avengers movies, and like there's just so much name dropping, and it's all references to things that as a non-comic reader, I have no idea what any of them are, and I just have to assume that they'll be explained and brought up in like a sequel. But without any sequels available, I just assume it's basically Umbrella Corporation, right? It's just evil company that everybody tolerates for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Wayne
you're not wrong.
Enterprises or whatever.
One thing I will say is something this movie does worse than the other X-Men movies, in my opinion, is define the power set. I feel like in other X-Men movies, you get a pretty clear idea of what characters can do. In this
Professor
one, you
X,
have
what's
no idea.
happening? Her powers are.
Yeah. It's like you get a good idea of what everyone's powers are. In this movie,
They kind of purposefully try to keep you in the dark for most of it.
yeah. Well, specifically with Danny and Ilyana, they are 2 characters that I never thought would be adapted to screen. Similar to Scarlet Witch, I didn't think they'd ever do anything with her on screen because it's really hard to explain what their powers are. Danny's is technically... Danny has a bunch of powers in the comics, but her main one is technically illusions, which is like why it was weird to me that so much of the effects of her illusions were real destruction. I haven't read much of the comics with her in them, to be completely honest. Ilyana's, like I said, magic manipulation, whatever the hell that means. In the comics, there's a whole order of witches and whatnot that will train. Like Wanda got a bunch of training with a couple different witches to make her powers stronger, but I don't even know what that means. I don't even know how they changed after she got stronger. It was just like suddenly she could do more thing. But yeah.
Kind of like Doctor Strange, or like...
No, because Doctor Strange's powers are wildly well explained for the most part.
Oh.
Like in the Doctor Strange movie, you know he can use the spinner ring, you know he can transport to the mirror dimension, and you know how the time thingy works.
Yeah, they do a good job explaining what he can and can't do there, yeah.
Yeah, but Wanda, I still, like to this day, watching WandaVision, I have no idea what she can and cannot do.
I only sort of watched Ultron once, so I've got no idea at all.
I have no idea what she can do.
And that was after I saw Infinity War.
And it seems like for Ilyana, what they've done is they've basically just said she can teleport and she can make the soul sword. It doesn't seem like she has anything else going for her. Which is
But
fine.
also, I think they're in this place that is designed as a sort of like, I'm here to help you learn about what your powers exactly are.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it makes sense that they're kind of ill-defined because these people are still learning about it themselves. For
Yeah.
the most
Well,
part.
but in that case, I wish there'd been more discussion between Reyes and the characters about that, because she's all about control, but where Professor X is like very like My Hero Academia style, like this is how your power works, so this is how you can stretch yourself to best utilize your abilities.
Yeah.
Reyes isn't even doing something that I would perceive as beneficial to Essex. She's just like control. It doesn't, I have no idea what she's trying to tell them to do. It's like when people tell me to meditate, I don't know what that means. I just sit quietly and my brain buzzes and I'm like, well, this isn't working.
That's about how it's supposed to work, actually. But
What?
we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. You kind of get the impression that Reyes hasn't been doing this for very long. Maybe they're her first batch or something.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all, actually.
Yeah.
The soundtrack, Noah, we mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah.
I found it to be generic at its best moments and cringy at its worst.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like a little too
But-
Hallmark in a couple of spots.
But in like a spooky way.
No, like in a Hallmark
Oh.
kind of way.
No, like
That's
when
In the
Danny
scene that I
and
brought up
Rain,
where
Oh,
that
never
I
mind.
hated, where like Danny goes into Ileana's room and she's like, "Hey, tell me your life story because we're friends suddenly."
Okay, yeah, no. Yeah,
The-
okay, I feel where you're coming from there.
Yeah, the music in that scene had some like distractingly Hallmark kind of vibes to it, and I thought it was really dumb.
I feel that. I get that. I just wrote down this one moment when Nina said that the soundtrack was really pulling a lot of weight in this movie. At that moment, there was actually some decent horror soundtrack action going on.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like,
I want to clarify what I meant by that is that it was going way too hard in the cliche horror direction for what was being shown on screen.
oh,
It was
well,
trying
yeah, no,
so hard to add the ambiance that it overstepped into cheesy as hell.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What scene was that? Do you remember?
It was
One of
the
the hallway
scene
scenes.
where Charlie Heaton's character Sam was walking down the hall and there was all the miners.
Oh, that
That's
one.
not when.
Yeah.
I thought you
Yeah,
said
yeah.
it closer to Smiley Boys.
I might have. I honestly thought it was the miners, but it also could. I just remember that Sam was there. It might have even been the scene where he's touching
Yeah, where they
the
find
washing
the door.
machine.
No, it was the
yeah,
scene
yeah.
where they find Ileana's door is pitch black and she opens it up and there's sad Ileana. Also, where
Oh,
did those
yeah, that one's
Smiley
pretty bad
Boys come
too.
from? Is that like
Yeah, what's up with
something
those
she was
dudes?
afraid of
You
but didn't
know what?
exist?
I
or
genuinely couldn't tell you.
Oh,
I do not know.
They seem, yeah, I don't know.
okay. Because
They were
I was
poorly
hoping you
designed
would
I guess
have
it's
answers
just
about
part
that.
of her backstory that we would have learned about.
Yeah.
They're not in her comic backstory, as
Oh.
far as I remember.
Okay.
Oh wait, there's something about them in fun facts. Let me find it.
All
All
right.
right.
Keep talking.
Because in her
That
backstory,
stuff
she's
does
got more
lead
actual
to the
demons.
one best actual horror scene, well, shot, I
Oh.
suppose, in the movie. And one of the best moments of acting from Anya Taylor-Joy specifically, which is where she's walking out of solitaire and she sees that thing painted on the wall. And she's like just staring at it with this like terrified look on her face. And then the Lockheed puppet on her hand turns toward her face and says, "It's her."
Yeah.
That was actually a really good moment. And I wish that the
Yeah.
rest of the movie would have followed that tone.
I was really bummed out because if I didn't know better, I would think that Anya Taylor-Joy is a bad actress from this movie.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Yes.
Also,
There
for-
was an awful lot of this movie that I was very disappointed
Me
in her
too.
acting. And I like her acting a lot in everything else I've seen her
She's
in.
good. Yeah.
She's really good.
Okay, so I thought that this movie was kind of, in a lot of ways, like, bear with me on this, Star Wars 2 Attack of the Clones,
yeah.
in that it is a cast of really good actors given absolutely nothing to work with whatsoever. You know, because
Yeah.
like we've seen Natalie Portman be really good in things. We've seen Ewan McGregor be really good in things. We've seen Christopher Lee be really good in such a
Everything.
broad variety of things that it's stunning. Hayden
Mhm.
Christensen, I'm sure, has been in other movies, but like,
no,
what's
he's
he
been in
gonna
one
do?
movie that was like an Italian mob, like
Oh,
like
no.
romance
That's the
Did
worst
you
rom-com.
guys ever see what was it, Jumper
No.
or something?
No.
Okay, my point though is like,
He
if you
was
give
in that.
somebody I hate sand, they're
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
going to be able to give you I hate sand.
I hate sand.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what we're seeing from everybody in this movie. Because, like, Charlie Heaton isn't a bad actor. We've seen him
No.
be good. Anya Taylor-Joy, we've seen be absolutely fantastic. Maisie Williams, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I gather people like her. We've seen all of these actors do good things. We know that they all can actually be good. I feel like they're all doing their best with what they're given. It's just that they're being given
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
little to work with in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
From the sounds of it, it just really seems like they're kind of cut at their heels. Where I think when all these actors signed on, they had like the original vision of this movie of like, yeah, we're going like this full horror direction, and then Fox initially is probably the ones that were like, hey, no, like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
cut it back.
X-Men movies aren't doing great.
And
We
so
got to
then
make this
they
more
had
accessible.
to like cut so much of what they were like excited for
Yeah.
and like what
I
they were
agree.
doing. Also read the smiley face mask people. From IMDb, a villain in the film wears a smiley face mask. In the comics, the New Mutants faced off with a mutant supremacy group known as the Right, who wore smiley faced masks.
Oh, I mean, I guess
Wow.
so.
I kind of liked how these guys were just mouth monsters.
Also,
They were just
I like
the
their design
Slender
a lot.
Man.
my fun fact
But
about
with a
the
mouth.
smileys is that if the internet is correct in what it's telling me, I'm pretty sure they were voiced by Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson did write a song for this movie.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes.
That's pretty weird.
Let me find it.
I mean, of all the
Um,
artists to make a song for an X-Men adjacent kind of a thing, I feel like he's actually kind of a good choice.
His cover of the song "Cry Little Sister" was originally it was made for the soundtrack.
Yeah, and he is credited as the voice for the smileys.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I do not like that man. I do not like him at all.
Oh yeah,
I like
some
him
bad
very
stuff
little.
just came about him.
He's weird.
It's
just
it's
came
been
out, huh?
coming out for a while. This is just the
okay.
first time that any actions have been taken.
Yeah.
Wait, what is? I haven't heard about that.
He's getting canceled again really hard because of a lot of abuse allegations
A lot
from like
It's
the
not-
last 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I missed the
I had a
days
lot
when the
of friends
worst
in
thing
high
that he
school
did was
that-
get that rib removed so he could suck his own dick. You know, I missed
Oh.
that.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly.
I had a lot of friends who really loved him back in high school, and
Yeah.
I really did not like him.
Mhm.
And I still think he's very weird, and I don't like him. And so I'm
Fair.
glad to see that
Yeah.
my feelings were
Your
are
intuition
being
was
confirmed.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a cool dude.
No.
But yeah, so that's the only fun fact I have about the Smileys. I was unaware that they are not a part of. I think it's an interesting choice for Ileana's backstory to make it more accessible by just having her scared of some creepy monsters instead of actual like demons from a hell dimension. But here's my big problem with that. Their design is fine on the body side of things, but the mask is just so clean.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
The
I
mask
don't
is bad.
I don't love the mask design. As someone who has gone through a lot of trouble looking through different mask designs and stuff in the past just for inspiration, I love looking at different masks in horror movies. Like the Krampus designs were incredible.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
to look at something done by professionals like Weta Workshop and what they're able to like put together, and then to see X-Men go like, oh yeah, well literally just fucking it's shiny, it's clean, it looks like they just bought it out of a freaking Party City and slapped it on.
If it was yellowed and cracked, I think I'd be okay with
Or
it.
if it
Yeah,
had like
honestly.
dirt or blood spattered onto it
I
or
was
something.
thinking like some rust, like it looks like
Oh,
the eye
yeah.
holes have rusted and kind of rust water is dribbled out of the whole eye sockets. I don't
That's
know.
the thing. It doesn't even
Anything.
look like they've got actual eye holes on the masks
Well, I
because
mean,
the
the
dudes
monsters
wearing
don't
them
have
don't
eyes.
have eyes. So like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if it was any tone of yellow, people would have compared it to Watchmen, which I think
That's
they're
also
probably
very
trying
true.
to avoid.
There's a lot of things they could have done differently with it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have made it out of wood, like have an obvious wood grain to it. There's
That
a lot
could've
of
been good.
things.
They could have just put the smile Snapchat filter on, a la Truth or Dare.
Oh God, Truth or Dare. We should do that one day.
No,
Have we even addressed a Blumhouse movie at this point?
no.
We haven't.
We can address good Blumhouse.
You should do Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
I like how you said good Blumhouse, like that exists.
Oh no, I don't think it's.
There's a lot of good Blumhouse out there.
They just don't put their name on it when it's good.
Yeah, that's the problem. Anything that comes Blumhouse first is usually bad. Anything that comes other people and Blumhouse
also,
usually good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the new one was the new Invisible Man Blumhouse. I thought it was.
I believe so.
I believe
I
so.
think I saw it was.
Also, Get Out was Blumhouse funded.
Was it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so good Blumhouse does exist. I retract my previous
There's a lot of
statement.
good Blumhouse out there.
They
But there's
just-
even more
It's the minority.
bad
Bad.
Blumhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blumhouse.
Do we have anything else we want to address before I read some of Noah's very good notes?
I would just like to say that it's a shame because like this is the worst grossing like X-Men / Marvel movie.
That's
but
a shame.
also they released it in August 2020 in theaters during a pandemic.
Yeah.
So of course it's the fucking worst grossing
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
They released it in August during the pandemic, and more importantly, like I said, I didn't hear it came out.
They-
No,
yeah,
I
there was
didn't hear
zero
anything.
advertisement.
They didn't talk about it. This one could have made a killing if they had premiered it on Hulu.
Yeah. Yeah, you
You
could have
know,
done pretty
make
well.
a big
Well,
thing out
and
of it. Boom.
That's why in the initial contract it said that it had to be released theatrically.
Oh.
Well,
Well-
I think that would have been the move.
That sucks. I did have one friend who saw it in theaters, wildly enough, because my friends are idiots sometimes.
During a panorama.
During a
We're in a
Pangea.
Panera right now.
But yeah, and then my boss, like I said, did see it, and he's very excited to hear my thoughts, but we haven't worked together since I've seen it, so sucks to be him. Haha.
Yeah.
He can just listen to the podcast.
I
can.
also think it's a shame that this is the least successful X-Men movie, considering how much of I think at the point of representation where we're in, it's not necessarily a huge breakthrough to have a lead lesbian romance in this kind of movie, but it is still a breakthrough. And these characters are so cute together, and it's actually really well written.
And they at no point did they say, wait, but I'm a girl. And they didn't do that line, and I was very happy to see that. Because
Also,
man, I'm sick of that.
Can we talk for a second about how hard they went telegraphing Rain's gayness?
They really
Did
did.
anybody else notice that? Because, like, before they even started pushing it really hard, she was like, "Ooh, Father Craig said I was a witch." And I was like, "Oh, I bet there's other things about her that the church doesn't approve of." And then, like, a scene and a half later, they've got her watching that one scene from, like, what is it? Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yeah.
A series in which Allison Hannigan plays a lesbian witch. So they're like building the association, witches are lesbians.
Yep.
But then to push that even harder, it's an especially gay scene. And she is like glued to the TV. She's like sitting in front of a table directly in front of the TV, like glued to it. And nobody else in the room is even looking. So it's like they're pushing so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like I they did a couple things with Buffy the Vampire Slayer that I enjoyed, which is the design for the smileys. When I initially saw them, you see them before they show the scene from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but they also show Hush, the episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where there are these creepy ass dudes who can take away your voice. And I had already been like, wow, those kind of dudes kind of look like both Slenderman and a little bit like the Silence from Doctor Who and a little bit like the dudes from Hush. And then they just showed the scene and I was like, oh, I bet the design was inspired by that.
Yeah.
Gosh, it is like the
Also,
Silence
fuck
from
Joss
Doctor
Whedon.
Who, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spindly dudes in suits is not good creature design. Can we just stop with that?
Can we? Yeah.
Can
I'm
we
with you
not see
there.
that again, please? I'm so tired of it.
But yeah, I really enjoyed Rain and Danny's romance. I really liked their early flirting with the scene where Rain talks Danny down.
Yeah.
Like I said, I am watching Bly Manor. A similar first flirting scene happens in that one where one character has a panic attack and the other's awkwardly talking them down.
Nina's watching without me because she forgot we were going to watch it together.
Yeah.
So she's just going to spoil it for me now.
I haven't watched it. I'm not
it's
sure.
I
so
just think
good.
that's a really
It's so
cute,
good.
really cute meet cute. I love that. I love that's how it happened. I love the like flirty jokes that Rain makes where it shows that like even though I would say that Moonstar, wow, Harry Potter, how did you get here? How Danny Moonstar as a person is maybe a little more confident than Rain. Rain is very
Catholic.
self-conscious about very Catholic.
Yeah.
But in the flirting, for some reason, Rain is like 80% more confident than Danny, and it's
She
super
is
cute.
all in with that.
I think it's adorable. I love them
Rain's
together.
the alpha.
True.
Yeah.
Because she's a wolf.
Whoa.
Here, I'm gonna just. scroll
I
through
love
this
that. I
actually.
thought like initially they might just be going like the gal pals route,
Yeah.
and never actually confirmed it. But then they made out, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
And they
We
built
are
to it really
best
naturally.
friends.
It didn't feel like
it did.
stuck
Mhm.
on or anything, or it didn't feel
Yeah.
forced
One-
at all. It just kind of went.
It
One
was
thing
just
I
a romance
thought
line.
it felt
Yeah.
just like any other romance between teen characters in a
Mhm.
movie, where
Yeah.
it's you've got the meet cute, the flirting, the snarkiness, the running into each other in awkward situations, and having a heartfelt moonlight conversation. Very typical.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I was really happy to see that they didn't treat it like it was special, but that made it more special.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good way to put it.
But yeah.
With that said, the entire rest of the character development in the movie is kind of like, you guys ever watch Monsters University, where like for half of the
Yeah.
movie, Sully is just a dick, and then right at the midpoint of the movie, a switch just flips, and he's like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
a nice guy now. I'm a teddy bear. Hello, everybody."
Literally, Ilyana.
And
she
that
says
is
so
every
many
character in this
racist,
movie.
She says so much racist stuff, and it makes me really uncomfortable because
She doesn't apologize for any of it. The movie
She
does
doesn't
nothing to say
apologize
like,
for it.
Ileana was wrong to say these things, but they
and
just
it's not
move.
like your typical like old school insults. Like Danny even mentions that it's not the old typical like Pocahontas kind of insults. It's thought out, really crappy stuff, and I'm like, why would you even give the 12-year-olds who play Call of Duty more fuel for their fire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can write an asshole character that you want to be sympathetic later. If you want me to like your character later on, don't make them actually racist or actually like, you can make someone a jerk. You can make someone lash out of anger without having them be so super racist.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, it wouldn't piss me off if they just like, there are two things they could have done. They could have made her an asshole all the way through and had her continue being a bad person and be racist, or they could make her sympathetic and not racist. It's one or the other.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like she could say a lot of the things that she says earlier on in the movie, so long as she does actually apologize afterward. Because a lot of it is just kind of, I get the impression that Ileana's not necessarily actually racist. She just wants to put together the most effective insults possible, right?
Mhm.
And that's more
Which, I
telling
mean-
just about how she wants everyone to know that she hates them more than actual racism. I mean, she might actually be racist. I don't know. But
Yeah.
if she
And
were
that
to
might be
actually
why
display
she's
some
not-
remorse, you know?
Yeah. That might be also why she's not super racist towards Berto,
Yeah.
who is Hispanic. It's because that's not something that will bother him as much as it bothers Danny, who already has to deal with so much freaking discrimination.
Mhm.
Right.
At least she doesn't insult Danny for being gay. At least there's that.
She does leave that alone.
So, like, why can't she leave the racism thing alone?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why one minority thing is more important to these writers. It's just weird to me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's to draw attention to the fact that, like, they've got a Native American character
It may be.
and they want
it may
everyone
be
to
that.
know.
That definitely feels like a probable thing that they might have been doing. unfortunately, because I love this movie otherwise. But like, I'm not like in what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not an important amount Native American. I like, my dad is Puerto Rican, and it is impossible to avoid a bit of Taino Indian or other indigenous to the Caribbean area, like Native in your ethnicity at that point. But like, so that's like so far off that this is not a personal thing for me. So I'd love to hear more Native people's takes on the representation in this movie and how Danny is treated. Because I definitely think it's a step up to have her character, and it's a step up from how she was portrayed in the comics or how a lot of Native characters were portrayed early X-Men.
Yikes.
Huge step up from that, but I wonder if we can't still do better. I definitely think we can.
Oh, almost certainly, right?
Anyway, now that we're done talking about touchy topics, does anyone want to hear Noah's funny notes?
Actually, I have one more thing I want to talk about the movie.
Yeah.
Dr. Reyes was wearing what looked like an old school radiation badge through the entire movie. And they made a real big point of having it fall off when she was running away from Danny.
I thought that was going to be something.
And I assumed that was something that was going to like help protect her from other people's powers or something like that.
Okay, see,
because I was having like tonal whiplash of the technology of the movie because the place is so old. And the camera bracket mounts and stuff like that, everything looked like old tech.
Right.
So I thought, oh, when is this? Is this alternate 1980 where we have secret high-tech items, but actually it's a low-tech setting, but they had it because they were fancy, or is this something else? And so a radiation badge of sorts made sense to me, right? And then they had it fall off, and I'm realizing it's just the Essex Corp logo.
See, I thought
I was so mad.
It was like a Star Trek thing, and it was to help with her like voice control of the doors and stuff.
That would have made sense too.
Like she could say that a door needs to open and stuff, but like it wouldn't open if the badge wasn't close to it, or something.
It kept showing that it was her voice that opened things, but that never came in play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
that
never
felt
mattered.
very Chekhov's gun to me, and then it never mattered.
Again, who knows if the movie had
Essex
been
Corp.
a little longer and a little harder edged, maybe it would have turned out a lot different, a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was a big miss. I thought that they could have done something with that. I also named her Dr. Gaslight because that's all that she did through the whole movie was gaslight every single person.
Absolutely.
Her death speech was so gaslighty. She's like, no, you don't understand. I'm doing this for you. We just have to kill her and it will be fine. Everyone needs to get over it. She
definitely, and I feel like people who gaslight in real life do this as well. It sounded like she was trying to convince herself as much as Danny.
Perhaps.
Oh yeah, no. There is definitely a cut of this movie where she was going to switch sides and then Mr. Sinister would come in and kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
very Promised Neverlandy.
Mm-hmm. Good.
A lot of the stuff that she said and a lot of the stuff that other characters say about the things that she said kind of made me think, all their like, stick to the treatment talk and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of made me think like, I know the X-Men comics originally were a metaphor about racism and stuff, right? But
about marginalization in general, but yes.
The way that they talked about the treatment and stuff in this one kind of made me think that it could be really well applied in today's culture in favor of like autistic or neurodivergent people, especially right now in the wake of that monstrosity that Sia just put out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Sia, because I know you're listening to this podcast right now. I don't like you.
We've had a lot of fuck yous this episode.
We're just coming at it hard today.
She did. So, yeah, X-Men has always been an allegory for basically any marginalized group. It's been telling your parents you're a mutant has been an allegory to coming out way back when.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously the racism thing with Professor X and Magneto being direct allegories to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., et cetera, et cetera. And it has been an allegory for mental health in the past too. And I think that's a great reading of this movie for sure.
I would agree.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that's a thing that I could see in this movie, but just that it's something that I think the themes should be used for in the near future, more so than anything that's currently in the movie.
I definitely saw it in the movie slightly. I think it could have been like you said, it can be used stronger in the future. But I saw it when I was here, like certain things that Dr. Reyes was saying. People who I know who have been in, what's the word I'm looking for? Who have committed themselves for mental health reasons. To hospitals or to that kind of situation. I have heard a lot of things about how they're treated, how the nurses, how like what they are allowed to and aren't allowed to do, and what that feels like, and how they're treated, like their humanity is treated. And I saw a lot of that in this movie, and just how like everyone's treated with a 9-foot pole, like maybe they're like babies or not even human to some extent. So I think it could have been done better. Maybe, again, a lot of this movie could have been done better, but I think the intent was there.
And who knows what the original cut was supposed to look like.
Yeah, this is maybe one of those movies that I'm going to mourn the potential for a little while, but it is what it is. And it's not too terrible.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe in 3 more years, the Snyder cut of New Mutants will come out. And
anyway.
And we'll find out what it was really supposed to be.
Okay.
All right. Nina wants to read my notes.
I really want to read Noah's notes because there are some good ones.
I don't even know what she... Oh, yeah.
Jeff, the theme song.
All right. So the theme music for this one, I was thinking, what if it's the Killers, right? What if it's like, don't you want to come with me? Don't you want to read my notes on your bones?
That's just a good song.
Oh, wait a minute. That sounds kind of weird. That doesn't work.
No.
We'll do something else.
It was going in a good direction, but I kind of you lost me somewhere in there. Okay, here we go. We've got my main question is: will this be better than Apocalypse? If the answer isn't yes, I'm gonna sue.
I mean, I think I'm within my right to charge them for mental damages at that point.
I think you'd win.
I'm glad you didn't have to sue.
Me too.
I wish you would have.
We've got Roberto is too horny for this movie.
He is.
Yes.
For a guy whose whole character development later is actually I'm a virgin because I'll incinerate my girlfriend.
Which, like, they do that great with Rogue, where she's, like, afraid of physical touch from then on. But Roberto's so horny.
Well, he's just such an asshole for the early parts of the movie. And then it's like, well, I accidentally killed my girlfriend. And then he doesn't talk for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to just assume he's no longer an asshole, I guess.
He doesn't do much in the later part of the movie, apart from sit up in the foreground of a shot that was clearly just there to mix up the shot.
That was
composition.
such a weird shot.
Yeah.
When Danny's fighting the bear and it's like 90% the back of Roberto's head. 9% bear,
She's doing
1% Danny.
She's doing the Moana walk towards the bear, and Roberto just sits up in the foreground. Terrible.
I think they call that
terrible.
moonwalking, actually.
The second worst, like, awkward shot in this movie for me is when Danny runs into the force field in the beginning of the movie, but the effects were added in such that it makes it look like she reacted to running into the force field before she actually does.
Yeah. It's not well put together, really.
They started pulling her away with that little wire, and then they're like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah, and in that scene, Ileana does the, like, spray painting thing, and she makes a big deal out of it, and then that never comes back. It doesn't start to matter at all. What was she even doing?
I don't even know.
Graffiti and crime.
I don't even remember what she wrote. Did
she didn't even write anything. They show the thing later on, and she just put, like, a single arch onto it.
Anyway.
That's for McDonald's.
It's just one, though.
She never got to finish.
Speaking of M's, I totally when I saw the W on the back of Rain's shoulder. So a thing in Days of Futures Past is that in the future mutants are branded with an M for mutant. So I saw the W on Rain's shoulder and I thought to myself, Wootant.
Victor Wootant is one of my favorite bass players.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here like, what's that stand for, you think? She's like, Wootant.
It stands for witch, but that's just like, why did you? I get why they put it there, but also like,
Wait, I thought it stood for wolf.
That's I assumed it stood for werewolf, but no, it's witch.
no, she gets.
I
she
assumed
gets
witch.
specifically
I don't know why you would think
She does
that.
specify later.
Yeah.
Wooten. Anyway, what do we got? No, this one's my favorite because it just says this hospital is a mess. What the hell is going on?
I think that's before we realized that there was only one person there. But yeah, not a good time.
This was actually filmed in, I think, Massachusetts' first mental asylum.
Oh.
And
Scary.
the entire cast was constantly freaked out by the
Valid.
location.
It's
I
probably
think that's
haunted.
fair.
Probably.
The fact that they managed to film there and make a movie that wasn't scary is pretty impressive.
No, absolutely. What else have we got? We have Ilyana needs to be less racist. We've been over this, but yes.
Yup.
We have Nina seems worked up about the big energy sword. It seems very serious.
She's over like when, Ilyana almost killed Danny with the soul sword, and he's just like, wow, she pulled out the soul sword. And I'm just like,
Okay.
she pulled out the soul
It's
sword.
called the Soul Sword.
Or scribbling furiously.
We've got the first appearance of the Slimies. The Smileys is marked with, what the hell? That mask guy was dumb as hell.
Yeah.
Anyone here play Dead by Daylight?
Nope.
A little.
So I'm pretty
Was
sure
the
that,
Legion character.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get what you mean.
play him though. Because this is a reference to something else. Ilyana, when it's arguably not Ilyana and it's a hallucination the whole time when she's swimming,
Uh-huh.
that part,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she's singing the same song as Huntress sings when she's stalking people. It's a longer version. It's not just a little
it's like
melody
a-
on loop.
It's a vaguely Eastern European like melody.
It sounds
All right,
like a
so I'm
lullaby.
confused about that scene actually because it is shown to have not been Ilyana actually through all
It
of that
wasn't.
scene.
Yep.
But none of the other illusions that Danny creates by accident
Were nearly
pretend
that
to be
convoluted.
something else for a little while.
Yeah.
So why?
Well,
why
they
that
had to
one?
get Roberto heated up first.
I
if
think
you will.
it's because it's about Roberto's
Stoke
worst
the
fear,
fires.
and his new worst fear is getting close to anyone else.
Yeah.
That's what I would assume.
Oh, okay, so it's not about it being Ilyana. It's just about the intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Freud
Maybe
would
he
love
just
that
has
movie.
a crush
And she-
on Ilyana.
Yeah. Because after that moment, one thing that does change about him is he does start referring to Ilyana almost exclusively as Illy. So anyway, what else have we got? It's okay. I'm a doctor. I've never trusted somebody less. We've got what did Sam do though?
Yeah,
It's never explicitly said that
No,
he caused a cave-in.
It is.
He
He did
said he
specifically
killed
say
He
people,
says
but
that
did
he
he
caused a
killed his
cave-in.
dad and the whole team, but
Yeah. So he,
I think it's implied that it's a cave-in, but
Mhm.
not a lot of options on that front.
I love the or like whatever. I don't remember if it's Danny or Ilyana, but someone asked Rain something if like is it gonna be okay? And Rain's just like, yeah, I can see in the dark.
Yeah, as
Oh,
if
yeah,
like,
they're-
of course I can see in the dark. It's like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
like
They're in the
you're crawling
vents or
around in
whatever.
vents. The question is more about whether you know where the vents lead than whether you can see. But
Yeah.
Everyone in this film has a body count, by the way. Like we talked about earlier, how it wasn't a tornado, it was a bear demon. But I actually think what it was is it started out as a tornado, but as Danny got afraid.
I don't think we talked about this on the episode yet.
Oh no.
No.
Emma, when she gave the synopsis, said that we
Oh,
don't find
okay.
out until later that it was actually the bear demon.
Mhm.
I think it was personally, this is just my theory. I think it was a combination of both. I think it started out as a tornado, but then Danny overblew it into
Mhm.
something bigger. Because she was asleep when everything started going down. So it was either she was asleep, and we do see later in the movie that when she's asleep, things do still go haywire. So it was either that was just her powers awakening, or there was something that scared her and things flew out of proportion.
Does her dad ever actually say that it's a tornado?
I don't know.
Because I don't think he does. I think that's just something that Danny and Dr. Reyes say afterward, because I'm pretty sure her dad just says, we've got to go, we've got to get out, and I've got to go help people. Like, I don't think he ever says that it's a tornado. I got the impression that she was just like having a nightmare or something, and then her powers decided to manifest then.
Possible.
One thing that did happen that we haven't talked about is that Dr. Reyes is revealed to have a past as possibly one of the doctors in the facility that's brought up in Logan. The facility where X-23 was made. So, because when Danny is on drugs, she does have a flashback to that. And at first I thought that meant that Danny was from that facility, and maybe her dad, Noah and I were thinking that maybe her dad was like an illusion that she made up for herself.
I was so excited at that thought. I'm like, oh, Danny's a test tube baby from the facility and escaped and imagined this whole thing, and this is just them recovering her and rehoming her.
In the better version of this movie, I think that's probably what they could go for.
Yeah, it would have been cool. I just remembered that is something that happened.
Could have been cool.
We got the classics. Acid Corp probably means something to comic fans. There's a lot of things about Noah wondering what something's going to be, and that it actually doesn't happen.
There's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
There is
the lie detector was going to come back.
Me too.
It would be neat.
Oh, this is my favorite one. It says here, because he did do this. He says, I literally said, unless this gets bad in the last 30 minutes, I don't know why it was rated so low. He said this at the point where there was 30 minutes left. He said this out loud. And then
moments later, I'm like, oh, there's two bears inside us. The fear bear and the other bear. Here's the fear bear. Yay. It was just not good.
I kind of thought she was going to defeat it by summoning the other bear.
Yeah, right?
And then that
instead, the power of love and friendship triumphed overall.
See, the moment where the bear was trying to bite at Rain and her feet were slipping and squishing his nose, I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. And then immediately they made him good like 2 seconds later. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like lucid dreaming, kind of. Like, her dreams and powers are like going completely out of control. And then she like takes ownership of it and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
She Pennywised it.
Yep.
Spoilers. But yeah. Yeah, they did really just have Boberto. He called him Boberto in this note. Pick up a boot filled to the brim with blood. Yeah, Dr. Reyes just like dissipates into a
yeah, and he just like picks it up and he pours it out and it just dumps blood for a while.
More liquid than would fit in a boot, I'm pretty sure.
It was
her. Was it a boot or a high heel? I don't remember.
It was a high heel.
Yeah, it was a high something that doesn't even hold that much water. Like, what?
And I don't know. There were some bad decisions at the end of this movie.
Yeah,
there were some bad decisions throughout this movie.
Right down to the part where it just ended and everything was just done. It's just like, oh, come on, y'all.
Yeah. Do you really? You just spent the entire night fighting various enemies, and now it's dawn, and you're gonna leave without even making yourselves breakfast or taking a nap? Like, come on, guys.
You're just gonna I wouldn't want to stay there any longer.
No.
But breakfast and a nap, Emma. I personally would really want breakfast and a nap at that point.
I'd be high on that. I'd be too high on that adrenaline.
Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe we would get like maybe 30 minutes into that walk, and then I'd be
like,
this was not getting breakfast and a nap.
This was a mistake. How long do you think the rest of the patients had been there at the time that Danny showed up?
Great question.
Because there are a lot of things that are said that kind of gave me the impression that they had been there for a while and gotten to know each other a bit. Then there's a lot of other things that are said that give the impression that they have not been there for very long and do not know each other whatsoever.
Yeah. Yes. It's like they're just like, yeah, we don't know anything about rich kid Roberto with his many, many girlfriends he's slept with. That's all we know. And
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have this like hideout from Reyes where they've all hung out before Danny got there and had bonding
they
moments
act
already.
like the hideout is this super familiar thing. They got stuff written on the walls and stuff, but then they start doing the lie detector game, and when they start, you get the impression that they've done this before, and this is just something that they do for fun. They play with a lie detector like teens do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then Roberto goes to answer the question and he lies, and Ileana's like, "We have a lie detector, dummy," as though they hadn't just hooked him up to the machine, and like he wouldn't have noticed that they hooked him up to the machine.
But
like
name me a teenager who thinks that they wouldn't be able to beat a lie
That's a
detector.
very good
absolutely.
point.
That's also
I'm not
true.
saying it's wrong that he would lie. It's just the way that Ileana says
Actually,
we have a
it
lie
is wrong that he
detector.
would lie, Jeff. That is a sin.
That's a
Thanks
sin.
a lot, Rain.
You're right.
He has to go to confession with the demon priest.
Yeah.
Poor Rain.
Also,
This-
apparently Maisie Williams took this role because she personally identifies with Rain as an
Aw.
ex-Catholic herself,
Aw,
Good
that's
for
really
her.
cool.
Not being
or
Catholic
current
anymore.
Catholic, and just not as strict as she used to be. My little blurb is very unclear.
Okay.
Yeah. She was the only one considered for that role because apparently
Nope,
some
Josh
fan
Boone
did-
identified with the character, not her. My mistake.
Yeah. Some fan had made a like fan
Edit?
animation thing
Yeah.
with Maisie Williams as Wolfsbane,
Mhm.
and the director saw it and he was like, "Okay, yeah, I want Maisie Williams."
That's
I
kinda neat.
genuinely
idea.
can't think of another actor that I could see playing Wolfsbane.
Yeah,
at
she
this
was
point.
great. I very, very much enjoyed her role in this.
I wish people would cast actual Slavic actors playing Slavic characters. R.E. Ilyana, but Anna Taylor-Joy did a fine job.
She did her best, yeah.
Yeah. This episode's going long.
It is.
It
We've run
really
very
is.
long.
Anyway,
Maybe we should
I
start
do feel
wrapping
like
up.
we've covered basically everything.
Yeah.
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 Anybody else laugh at any point in the movie?
A lot.
I had to pause it for a second at the one part where they're fighting the bear. Well, Ileana's fighting the bear and everybody else runs to the church, and Rain is like, demons can't go into churches. The bear immediately breaks through the wall into the church. But then
My
it is
personal-
revealed that the bear only went into the church to get away from Ileana.
Well, what's really funny to me is the moment where they're like, we have Sam and Birdie are like, we gotta help Illy, and so they like try and redirect the bear. And the moment that the bear is redirected, she's like, "What? Come back here, you coward!"
That was very funny.
She was literally not having any trouble with that bear.
None at all.
Yeah.
It was
Honestly,
running from
all her
her
trouble started because they interfered.
Yeah, when
could've
she
just
was
left
out in
her
the
alone.
open, she had the upper hand. But when they got into the church, she did have some issues.
Unfortunate. But honestly, all the
Because
negative
demons
things said
can't go
here,
into churches.
all the negative things said, I still liked this movie a lot. I would watch it again. It was
10 out of 10.
it was worth my time,
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
which is
X-Men
honestly
movies
more than I
go.
can say for some movies that
For
I've watched recently.
most X-Men movies in the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of
Yeah.
Casual Obsession, a horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies and X-Men movies.
Yeah.
I knew that this movie was probably not going to be heavy on the horror, but I wanted to do it anyway because
I'm
IMDb
so glad you
listed
did.
it as horror.
Me too.
And I was like, I'm fucking taking it.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
so glad that you
thrilled.
did.
I think once a year we all, maybe not once a year each, but like
Every
some
once in a
number of
while.
times a year. I think we've earned some selfish movie choices, especially Emma,
Yeah.
who has not gotten to pick a movie yet. Emma earned
Yeah.
this, which
I
makes it
earned
sound like a
this,
mean
damn
thing, but it's not.
What was I gonna say? But yeah. I'm really glad we got to talk about the X-Men because I don't know if you guys picked up on this because I never explicitly said it, but I'm a huge X-Men fan, and with that, you can find me on Twitter at Nina Wolverine. I don't think it's ever come up before that my name is very hugely based off of an X-Men character. I'm wearing a Wolverine shirt right now.
I think you've mentioned it at least 4 times, and every time you've been
I'm
like, I
pretty
don't
sure.
know if I've talked about this, but
Yeah, my point being, Nina Wolverina. If you want to follow me on my more horror specific Twitter, House Usher Rises.
Wolverina is Wolverine's mom.
I'm Wolverine's mom.
The real villain.
Anyway, I'm Noah. You can follow me at Bubba the Bad, BUBBADABAD, Twitch, Twitter, and Insta. I'm making a return on Tumblr too. It happens once every few months. So I'm just like, I hate Facebook, and I go on Tumblr. And
I don't think we ever talked about this. This is not going to mean anything for the people listening to this podcast. When I was listening to Off the Air Still, which is another podcast that Noah does, one of the co-hosts is named Jackson, and his name everywhere is Jacksonium, except on Tumblr, he changed it to Turning Point USA as a joke. And when he talked about that on the podcast, I immediately made a Tumblr of Jacksonium, and I stole his name, and I've never given it back.
that's amazing.
As if you'll ever want to stop being Turning Point USA.
Yeah.
Well, one of these days he'll find out about it.
A perfect clone of his account too. Same picture, same layout, same everything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And
It
for
was
a
high
long
effort.
time, I was retweeting the same stuff that
Yeah,
he was. For
everything
literally
he
months,
posted.
I was doing that, and then he never mentioned it. And so I stopped, but it's still there.
I'm gonna have to ask him about it. I wonder if he noticed,
I
because I'm
wonder
sure
if
he
he
noticed and
noticed.
just didn't do anything with it. But
Yeah.
anyway, Emma, outside of @Jacksonium on Tumblr, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MJ2017, or I run the podcast Twitter at Casual Horror Pod.
Yeah.
And also I'm gonna do a special shout out for me. I've been working on a tabletop role playing system
Oh, yeah.
based on Final Fantasy since September, and I ran a session for it last night for a YouTube channel I'm in called Blades and Blasters, and that video should be coming up in the next couple days. By the time
That's
this
exciting.
comes out, it's probably already up.
Hell yeah.
But yeah,
Cool.
Super fun
so
system.
That's exciting.
How about you, Jeff?
You can find me on Twitter at Bubba Wubba Dab. You can find me on Instagram at The Hammer of Jeff, and you can find me on this podcast on the next episode, choosing the movie.
Ooh.
There's probably a better way that I could have phrased that.
That was pretty good, though.
What movie are we gonna watch?
The movie
next?
that we are going to watch is a movie that I believe to be one of the actual. Wait, hold on. Okay, so I've been picking bad movies on this podcast so far, and for a while I thought I'm just gonna be the bad movie guy because the podcast needs that, and somebody needs to fill the spot, so I'll just pick bad movies, right? And then I thought, I'm going to get bored with that. Everyone's going to get bored with that. It's going to stop being fun eventually. So I was like, how much funnier is it going to be if I just like vary wildly between like the best and the worst movies, and you just never know what I'm going to come at you with next?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I'm picking a good one this time. And I am going
Okay.
to let you know whether I am picking a good or a bad movie every time so that you know what to expect going into it. Because I would hate to pick a good movie and have you guys going into it like, Jeff made me watch Killer Clowns. This is probably going to be that bad. And then not appreciate it for the fullness of what it is.
I appreciate
this
that
is
you're
a
doing
good
that
one.
for us.
I don't know
Okay.
what's going to be after this. It might be another bad one. It might be another good one. Who knows?
Just tell us what
This
the movie
one-
is, Jeff.
I believe to be one of the greatest horror movies, if not one of the greatest movies in general of the 2010s. I think it is
Okay.
really, really good.
It's The Shining.
The 2010s.
Is it Halloween 2018?
1970s, The Shining.
No, I think I know what it is.
Oh, I'm really excited. Just
1980,
say
I'm
it.
a moron. The Blackcoat's Daughter.
Not what I thought at all.
Oh,
I've been
heard
telling you to
good
watch it
things
for
know
about
what
3
that
years,
is.
Noah.
You
So
have.
finally,
I
I
have
get
had
to
good-
actually
heard good
make you
things.
do it.
I thought you were about to say Oculus, which I don't think is one of the best movies of
No,
the
it sucked a
2010s,
little.
but it's very good.
It's fun. It's not good.
I've
Okay, that's
never
fair.
heard of this movie before, which terrifies me.
It is
I'm
on
really
Netflix.
excited.
I am
The Black Coat's
begging you,
Daughter
all of my
is-
co-hosts and all of our listeners, I am begging you, do not learn anything about this movie before you watch it. Don't watch a trailer. Don't read a summary. Just find it
I
on
was literally
Netflix and
about to
hit
go
the
watch
play
a trailer.
button. You want to go into this as absolutely blind as possible.
I'm very
I'm
excited.
very excited.
Cool. Awesome. Love it. Well, with all that said, thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you next time. Happy Valentine's Day.
Woo!